The Reluctant Conspiracy Theorist. One of my earliest memories is of me hiding under a table during playtime in preschool. I was 5 years old, and it is the earliest memory I have in a sizable social setting. There are two other memories I have of 5 years old or younger. One is of the night my youngest sister was born. I was 5 years old, and my uncle's wife stood at the base of the staircase in the row home I lived in on 2nd Street in Hamburg, Pennsylvania, and announced to me at the top of the staircase that I have a second younger sister. I also have a distinct snapshot memory in shades of gray where I am crawling in the living room of the apartment my parents lived in when I was 2 years old. I can see in my mind's eye the outside stairs leading to a small yard with a large tree in the middle of it. In the shaping of my present remembrance, those outside stairs appeared to be as steep as if I was looking down from the Empire State Building. I suppose if I searched my memory long enough, I could come up with other memories from my early childhood and toddlerhood, but then again, maybe not. The one from preschool stands out the most, and in hindsight today I see it for what it is. The beginning of the conscious journey I've been on since I was a child, leading up to the discovery of the David Icke book, Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More, in Honoka'a, Big Island, Hawaii, on July 17th, 2018. There I am hiding in plain sight under the table during playtime in preschool. The preschool was held in a basement of a church in my hometown of Hamburg, Pennsylvania, across the street from a field house that used to hold WWF wrestling matches with Hulk Hogan and the likes of him in the late 70s and early 80s. I remember looking out from under the table at the two preschool teachers, probably mothers of some other children in the class, with abject horror on my face, because abject horror was flowing through my veins and suffusing my entire being. No, I don't want to play with the other children. Why on earth would I want to play with the other children? It was the craziest thing imaginable. Why would I want to play with other children, and where did they come up with such a crazy idea? I'm sure my parents were alerted to my unusual behavior. Call the National Guard. We have a child here who won't play with the other children when it's playtime. I vaguely remember the haze of fearful suspicion that there was something wrong with Luke coalescing at this time, and it would follow me until I graduated high school. At the age of 5, none of this was articulated in any way in my head, not even the rudiments of it. By no means would I claim to be a child savant, but I was conscious of forces surrounding me, trying to impose an order on my life and on the very nature of who I was that was completely alien to my nature. I was acutely aware of my otherness, my apartness, from the herd at the age of 5. An inchoate, nebulous awareness, as aware as any 5-year-old could be, but nevertheless I was aware to my bones, that something was profoundly off, something was fundamentally off, with the world I found myself in, and not for a second did I believe it was me. This unflappable self-reliance would be my salvation. At the end of the preschool year, we had a preschool graduation ceremony. Every child stood up on a small podium, our parents in observance, our names announced as preschool graduates, and then we were expected to jump off the podium and run to a desk where our preschool teachers were announcing each of us individually as preschool graduates, and place a kiss on the cheeks of our preschool teachers. No kisses from me. I remember wrinkling my nose at both of them, running over to my mother, and wanting nothing more than to get the hell out of there. It was the imposition of something completely alien to me, in no way articulated in my child's mind, but the seed of knowing was there, for it was my first brush with forces I wanted absolutely nothing to do with, and in my child's way, being aware of it on a cellular level, I made it perfectly clear to everyone around me. I never fit in, ever. Nothing unique in and of that. The world is filled to the brim with people who don't fit in. As we are experiencing our lives, especially at an early age, I think it is quite natural to consider our situations unique, our set of predicaments unique. I was not alone either in feeling that way, about the circumstances I found myself in. I think when you are besieged with nothing but stress, fear, and shame as a young child, it is much easier to slip into a hermetically sealed chamber of self where you live out two lives simultaneously. One where you are pantomiming a role for the social setting you are thrust into. That first one being the public school system for most of us. And the other life is the inner self you are fighting tooth and nail to save from this alien imposition because you know darn well it is worth saving because it is true. The illusion of uniqueness followed for me, and I can only surmise a similar experience is true for quite a lot of people. The brain certainly has one heck of a time waging a war of sorts with itself. That war being between the reactive mind, the lizard brain, which wants to thoughtlessly lash out instantaneously at all incoming external stimuli, and the neocortex, which allows for higher brain functions to work their magic. I will forever be indebted to David Icke for so brilliantly elucidating this point. It's one of those things where once I read it spelled out in Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, the lion sleeps no more. I knew this in a confused, cloudy form of knowing my whole life. Frustration compounded by all the unresolved mysteries of a lifetime floating in the ether of the mind, seeing through the misty miasma of an utterly insane world that an explanation is to be found for just what the heck is going on here. And then came my stroll along the sidewalks of Honoka'a on the big island of Hawaii on July 17th, 2018, and David Icke's book staring me straight in the face. Life is beautiful. Back to school. I find myself a kid, as we all once were, but on the case. A cosmic detective. Gosh darn it, something's afoot, and I'm going to figure it out because I am special as everyone else. Needless to say, I hated school. I excelled at it. I earned good grades. I won national scholarships and discovered my lifelong love of reading when I picked up a copy of Dangling in the Tornafortia by Charles Bukowski, sitting on a coffee table in a shared apartment setting at Penn State when I was 20. Through it all, beginning from that preschool memory, I knew all along something was wrong. Something was fundamentally broken with the world I found myself so utterly alien in, and not for 1 second did I believe it was me. Of course everyone around me thought it was me. My parents, bless them, they did their best and I love them for it. It was Tourette syndrome, so they thought, and it may very well have been. An uncle of mine has Tourette syndrome, and in combination with depression, it has been a lifelong debilitating disease for him. I manifested the signs of Tourette syndrome as a kid, the face twitching and throat clearing and eye rolling. I pretty much grew out of it by my early 20s, which isn't uncommon, so I've heard. As a kid, it made for some challenges. I was mercilessly bullied in high school and had a not too easy time at home either. In hindsight, I see it as all part of my personalized learning experience, for if I hadn't suffered as a child, I can't imagine who I would be today. I'd still be me, of course, but resembling nothing of the person I am today. Back to school again. Concurrently to all of the adolescent turmoil attending to my overall unusualness, my neocortex was absorbing and processing everything, along with my reactive mind, the lizard brain. More on my overall unusualness. Not only was I making these facial twitchings and throat clearings, but to top it off, other kids thought I was goofy looking and made no secret they thought that. All part of the merciless bullying, mocking, daily ridicule routine that was my life until I graduated high school. My main point in sharing this is to illustrate the internal war between my reactive mind and higher functioning reflective mind. I knew nothing but stress, fear, and shame as a kid. My reactive mind was on high drive, fighting for survival, but at the same time I was acutely aware of the control system imposed upon me. For the first 18 years of my life, I could not offer a thank you to anyone. There truly wasn't one single person who I could say thank you to and mean it. There was not a single person in my life for the first 18 years of my life who in any way showed me they had any idea what I was going through and were on my side. Not one. That sticks with a person. and never once did I lose my belief in myself. So in the midst of all the tossing and turning in the reactive mind, I just wanted to know why. Why are things the way they are? Why is my life so entirely, systematically regimented from the moment I wake up, to the first morning school bell, to the last afternoon school bell, to after-school sports practice, to homework, to the moment I cry myself to sleep at night as a kid until my 18th birthday? You eventually run out of tears. Why is it that, starting as a kid, every time you show an inkling of personal expression, a hint that an individual personality is revealing itself, you get shot down? You firmly and briskly are reminded, from peer ridicule to teacher indifference to your ridicule, to teachers' open hostility in the face of any questioning of the school curriculum. From the moment you diverge from the strict towing of the line of memorizing and regurgitating what the textbooks say, you face threats of detention or losing an A, which I was keen on earning as many A's as possible. Not once was I encouraged to think for myself at school. That sticks with you. And not because I think the absence of encouragement from any outside source is necessarily right or wrong, but the fact that what came instinctively and intuitively for me, to question why things are the way they are, and for me, at that time, the world was only as big as the public school I attended and my family home, was wrong. I was in the wrong, to the point where it was essentially impressed upon me that I was sick in some way, that I needed correction, for acting out my nature. My nature was wrong. It's wrong to be curious. It's wrong to ask questions. It's wrong to have an inquisitive mind if that inquisitive mind does not know its place. The school was there to remind you of your place and what you were to know in your place. These are the subjects we teach. These are the answers to the questions on the tests. And if you fail to provide the answers we have for the tests, you fail. No explanation, no expository notes. This is the way it is. And to play devil's advocate, let's say the school system's way is the best way. Let's say it's designed to churn out the happiest, most overall wellness-achieving, most productive citizens for a high-functioning society that benefits the most people. Let's say that's true. If that were true, why not incorporate the explanation for why it is true into the curriculum? Why not illustrate it with examples from history of how the human animal has gotten along so smashingly well with each other, and it's all the result of our successful school system? You'd think these school administrators would have seen long ago how much aggravation they could save themselves imposing a control system on children if they would only explain to the children why it's for their own good. Never. Not once. Not once did a school lesson penetrate to my true nature, the nature that asks why. Every step of the way, that essential part of my nature was shot down, as swiftly as it was expressed. Always begging the question, why? Why are things the way they are? Why is my very nature attacked by every external force around me? Could I really be so sick? Is it me? Does my very nature need to be corrected, and corrected every step of the way? Never for a second did I consider this to be the case. These people inhabiting and sharing my small corner of the world had nothing I wanted. I never envied them. They didn't seem too happy with the way things were either. I never considered myself the incarnation of perfection, but good grief, man, was I really so ill that every impression, every hunch, every intimation, every suspicion, every thought I had that the world I live in is so profoundly and fundamentally alien to my nature? Did all of this need to be stomped out of existence in order to build that well-oiled machine we call the big wide world that works so smashingly, beautifully well to bring happiness and well-being to the greatest number of people? What a mystery. What is the point of living a life where every aspect of your nature has to be corrected? What is the point of living such a life, especially when every cell in your body is screaming through mind, heart, body, and soul that you are being lied to? You are being bamboozled. For that was the case. From preschool through high school and then college, every step of the way, and I mean every step of the way, that was my feeling. I am being lied to. I didn't know exactly how. I didn't know how to articulate myself in any way approaching coherence, but I knew I am being lied to. This world is a fraud. I am surrounded by fake people, and if things don't change soon, the tedium of it all will kill me by its dullness and mundane repetitiveness alone. It's not me. I knew this. I always knew this. I never doubted this. I could hardly explain it, but I knew it. Everywhere I looked, I saw it. The church I was raised in, the schools I attended, the forced participation with kids your own age in extracurricular activities. Everywhere in my family. It was always there, but on the outskirts of expression. The control system. There are forces at work designed for the sole purpose of control. Or so I thought at the time that was the sole purpose of these forces. I cannot remember a single instance from my childhood where a question I had, if it wasn't pertaining to rote regurgitation expected of me from the adult authorities, wasn't met with either wildly confused faces or roundly rejected with ridicule. Not once. That sticks with a person. And more to the point, what fascinated me most about this was how foreign it all was to my nature. Why would I be born like this, if only to be imposed upon every step of the way by forces entirely alien to me? It was this daily confrontation with a hostile alien world, a world I wanted no part of, and to this day have no interest acquiescing to in any way, that puzzled me. I didn't feel sick. I knew I was scared and stressed out beyond belief as a kid. I knew I needed relief of some kind, but the thought that I was sick never entered my mind. I knew they were wrong, that they were dead wrong, that this control system was dead wrong. I just didn't know how to explain they were wrong. The saga continues. After discovering Dangling in the Tornaforcia by Charles Bukowski when I was 20, I was hooked. I became a reader. There were other people out there like me who felt similarly to me about the world, and by reading their tales and their impressions on life, I could augment my own frenetic thoughts on life and maybe make sense of it. At this time, my head was spinning from the trauma that was my childhood. I needed medicine, not of the pharmaceutical variety, and the great books of the world provided that medicine. For most of my 20s, I stayed up reading until 2 in the morning. I couldn't get enough. These books were friends. I never had friends before. I liked having friends. I couldn't get enough of them. As I entered my mid-30s a few years ago, my reading pace has slowed down, but not too much, and I estimate I've read over 2,000 books in my life. I have met a handful of people over the years who shared my intellectual honesty and curiosity about the world at large, and their friendships have been invaluable. Nevertheless, the same nagging mystery of mysteries still haunted me. What the heck is wrong with this world? Everywhere you look, it is broken. Just exactly what the hell is wrong with people? Why is it so hard for them to see that there isn't just corruption in the world, but the world is corruption incarnate? That they are mindless slaves to a control system that is as absolutely meaningless as it is ubiquitous and is accelerated by the day by exponentially expanding technology. Before I came across the David Icke book in Honoka'a, I still would have been at a loss to articulate any real explanation for any of this. But then I came across Human Race Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More by David Icke in Honoka'a, Big Island, Hawaii, on July 17, 2018. I lost track a long time ago as to how many trips I've made to Hawaii over the years. This one has proven to be the most momentous trip of my life. I was walking the sidewalks of the quaint little village of Honoka'a that day on the northeast coast of the Big Island when I spotted this book on a used bookshelf outside an antique store. I recognized the name as an author my best friend mentioned in a conversation a year or so ago. I didn't have any associations attached to the name, only that it was mentioned along the way of our correspondence through the years. I called my friend, mentioned the name David Icke, and he in no uncertain terms recommended I purchase the book. Shape-shifting, interdimensional, extraterrestrial, reptilian humanoids who cannot be readily perceived in our three-dimensional physical world came up in the conversation, and I said, "Oh, it's that guy." There also is a mesmerizing illustration of a lion on the cover with a map of the world on its face. In the past 3 years, I have read just about every book published by Philip K. Dick and Patricia Highsmith. Given Dick's otherworldly gifts for mind-bending paranormal theological insight, and Highsmith's terrifying, sympathetic psychopathic portraits, I figured if David Icke is half as interesting as either of those two, reading Human Race Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More will be well worth my time. Little did I know. I had never really taken the idea of a global conspiracy seriously before. You mention global conspiracy, and the first thing I want to do is roll my eyes, then snicker and guffaw. As if the world isn't crazy enough so as it is, people want to add insult to injury by superimposing some massive cloak and dagger story behind the real story. Honestly, you mean to tell me all of this is somehow coordinated behind the scenes by a secret society or deep state? Impossible. If it was true, how could they hide it? Shouldn't we all know by now? Something on that scale would require cooperation and coordination of such a degree as to be laughable. People are always, and have always been, in a constant state of conflict. Turn on the news. It's everywhere. Watch any movie. Without conflict, you don't have a story. It's impossible. End of story. I started reading the David Icke book with the expectation that it would be somewhere along the lines of a News of the Weird, National Enquirer, pulp comic, pulp novel variety, except with possibly more literary merit. It didn't take me long to realize Human Race Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More is nothing of that kind. This is something else entirely. From the beginning I realized I was reading something on the scale of the complete works of Aristotle in its comprehensive thoroughness. I flipped through all 700 pages, small print, large pages, the equivalent of 1,200 or so standard published pages, glancing at the illustrations accompanying the text. Quickly glancing at the beginning of chapters. The book is massive. This wasn't just thrown together to make $1. This is a Rosetta Stone of some kind. The investigative research behind the writing of the text is astounding. Stylistically, it was instantly obvious the author wanted nothing more than for his message to be understood. True or false, it was honest. The honesty poured out of every sentence. Right or wrong, this guy was laying it out there in the most straightforward way possible. This is what is going on in the world. This is how long it has been going on. This is what we are. This is what we can do about it. Where to start? What is going on in the world, and how long has it been going on? There are shape-shifting, interdimensional reptilian humanoids existing in the fourth dimension and beyond who cannot be readily perceived by us with the five senses in our three-dimensional world. They have been manipulating through mind control the human race since right around the time humans acquired the power of speech, give or take. That's a mouthful. Sounds a trifle nuts on the face of it. Until you see the evidence. From the caduceus to the rod of Asclepius, to the serpent in the Garden of Eden, to the cobra growing out of the forehead of King Tut, which isn't even beginning to scratch the surface, ad infinitum, throughout the ages, all known cultures, from the Sumerians, pre-Sumerians, Babylonians, Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, Israelites, on down to the United States, the symbolism and iconography of the serpent and other lizards and reptiles is everywhere. And that's just hardly touching on the symbolism and iconography. I won't even begin a synopsis of David Icke's research, because there is no short version that will do it justice. You either want the whole picture presented to you or you don't. You either come at the mountain of evidence presented by David Icke with an open mind, weigh it with your own judgment, and then form an opinion, or you don't. One thing is certain. There are no shortcuts here. I am not about to paraphrase when I can go directly to the Rosetta Stone and refer someone to the Rosetta Stone. No sound bites will offer any kind of honest analysis here. There is just no way. I spent 2.5 weeks doing nothing else but studying Human Race Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More, and then processing the mountain of evidence presented to me each day as I walked the earth and went about my business. I did everything in my power to weigh all the evidence and suspend my judgment until I finished this book. When faced with such extraordinary material, with such an extraordinary message, my instinct was to be as slow as possible to judgment. And that's the thing. I couldn't put it down. I couldn't laugh it away. I couldn't roll my eyes. I couldn't snicker and chortle my way out of this one. I was seeing something in what appeared to be its entirety. This was on the scale of the great philosophical system builders of the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. Right or wrong, true or false, David Icke believed in his message. And not only did David Icke believe in his message, but he presented his case with a mountain of evidence that when viewed in the full light of day, when read and analyzed in its entirety, measures up to anything presented by Descartes, Spinoza, Hegel, Hume, Kant, or any of those other fellows that spent a whole lot of time thinking about just what the hell is happening on this planet. The global conspiracy is to be reckoned with. This isn't a guy who smears himself with peanut butter and jelly and goes skipping down the sidewalk singing Frosty the Snowman. Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More is a revelatory document of the history and current state of what is. It was a slow dawning comprehension for me of what David Icke is speaking to. It took me 3 weeks and some change for it to sink in. But as it sunk in, I could feel the changes. I could feel the chemical balances in my brain rearranging themselves. I was literally becoming a different version of myself. On a psychic, biochemical, cellular, atomic level, I was changing. At times I experienced discomfort, but I knew it was necessary. I haven't had a drink in a week and a half, and I haven't even thought of it. I have experienced a peace through the dawning of the truth coming together for the first time in my life. For that is what David Icke presents to the world, the truth. For David Icke speaks the truth. I never thought it was possible for one person to so thoroughly and comprehensively assemble just what the hell is going on here on Earth and then disseminate that in such a straightforward manner. There is a global conspiracy that reaches back to pre-Sumerian civilizations, has had its hands in all human institutions since then, and to speak of how a handful of filthy, wealthy Jewish gangsters like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and their ilk have been puppet masters with their hands in everything, in particular the world banking systems since the American Revolution, or thereabouts, and how they manipulate interest rates and form allies in world wars and start financial collapses, doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. It simply doesn't even begin to tell the story. The serpent symbolism and iconography doesn't even begin to tell the story. There are no shortcuts to this story. The breadth of this story is fathomless. There are just no shortcuts. Per David Icke, and I will paraphrase here, the moon is a hollow spaceship with various alien life forms inhabiting its subsurface, bouncing signals off it to Earth to scramble people's brains. That's a mouthful. Until you hear the mountain of evidence casting doubt on the moon's validity as a natural satellite of the Earth, then you stop laughing. You stop laughing when you hear the similarities between Abraham Lincoln and JFK's assassinations. You stop laughing when you hear the circumstances surrounding Stanley Kubrick's death. You stop laughing when you see how the internet ties into all this. You stop laughing when you see how vaccinations and pharmaceutical companies tie into all this. You stop laughing when you see how fluoride in our drinking water ties into all of this. You stop laughing when you see how we came to use the words money, monster, month, monarchy, monotheism, and the like. You stop laughing when you see how Orwellian nightmares have come true. You stop laughing when you see the scope of government surveillance and how easy it is to learn every detail about a person's life and catalog it in a government database. You stop laughing. Nevertheless, it is all designed to control and feed off people's low-frequency energies such as fear, anger, stress, anxiety, and confusion. Nothing but a full accounting of the evidence will do this justice. David Icke has done that, or at least done what is humanly possible in approaching that. So, There is a massive global mind control operation functioning through nearly all of our human institutions, especially the government, media, internet, education, healthcare, and entertainment industries, movies and TV in particular. Feel free to disagree. I would too if I hadn't reckoned with the full face of the evidence. 1 month ago, I would have laughed at all of this. The evidence is irrefutable once you see it. But nevertheless, please feel free to dismiss it out of hand. If David Icke stopped there, it'd be quite the bummer. This goes far beyond revealing a global conspiracy run by shape-shifting interdimensional reptilians feeding off people's low-frequency energies of fear, stress, anger, anxiety, and the like via a global mind control apparatus that transcends our five-sense reality of a three-dimensional physical world masquerading as the end-all and be-all. David Icke presents a full cosmology and ontology. So what are we? We are infinite consciousness having an experience in an individual physical human body. Infinite consciousness by its very nature is infinite love and all possibilities. Okay, sounds familiar. The best of Buddhism, the best of the Bible, not so much the best of the Christian Church, but the best of the Bible when read with an eye to its metaphysical mysteries. The best of the Beatles. In no way would I want to sell David short on his exposition of spirituality, the nature of what it is, and how it is woven into the global conspiracy. Thematically, I see it as no different from Buddhism, and a confirmation of the Bible as a spiritual and metaphysical text that can only be understood in that context. It's David Icke's insights into the nature of spirituality and how it all ties into the global conspiracy, how we decode wavelength information into the apparently three-dimensional physical world, how that decoding process is manipulated by other life forms, and how it isn't in any way what it seems to be, how the internet, DNA, our genetics, and the five senses are all interrelated in how we process and decode wavelength information into what we perceive to be reality. No shortcuts here could do his insights justice. Only a full reckoning of David Icke's complete cosmology and ontology will do it justice. There are just no shortcuts to understanding the full picture. What we are looking at here is the equivalent of Aristotle's complete works concerning the scope of knowledge in the ancient world. Except this isn't the ancient world we live in, and David Icke's work is a living, breathing testament to understanding the utter madness happening all over the world, everywhere today. So what can we do about it? What can any one person do to change what is happening in this world? Even for someone, and this theoretical someone would be most people, who believes the idea of a global conspiracy masterminded by a sinister group of interdimensional reptilian humanoids who reside in a dimension beyond the perceivable light that penetrates human eyes is the most insane, batshit crazy idea they've ever heard. What should anyone do? It's hardly far-fetched to believe we are being brainwashed in some way by advertisements, subversive and misleading news headlines that hardly tell the whole story, data mining that reinforces our buying habits and subconsciously directs our search for information and news via search engines. Life is messy. It's scary out there. I went outside today, and I can tell you it's a trifle fucked up. So what can we do about it? What can anyone do about it? It starts with awareness and expanding awareness. They can't get to you unless you give into your lower frequency energies. Fear, anger, stress, anxiety, and the like are what they feed off of. That is the greater purpose of the control system. Whomever or however you choose to define the control system, you'd be hard-pressed to deny it exists. Call it the collective super subconscious if you like, the wide-ranging forces that tell you all day long that you are not good enough, the other political party is dead wrong, people with different shades of skin are the primary threat to your community, whatever the case may be, the collective madhouse of forces that keeps the human race in a perpetual state of fear, conflict, and general unrest. Question some more, keep questioning. The truth of the world and what it is exceeds all of our wildest imaginations. Which brings me to perhaps the greatest lesson gleaned from Human Race Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More. The reactive mind, the lizard brain, and how to master it. David Icke isn't the first person to write on the subject, but I found his explanation of how the reactive mind enslaves the human race in conjunction with the global conspiracy to be most illuminating and quite applicable to just about all conflict in my life. I couldn't find a better example to illustrate this point than one of Donnie Trumper's latest tweets. The NFL players are at it again, taking a knee when they should be standing proudly for the national anthem. Numerous players from different teams wanted to show their outrage at something that most of them are unable to define. They make a fortune doing what they love. Be happy, be cool, a football game that fans are paying so much money to watch and enjoy is no place to protest. Most of that money goes to the players anyway. Find another way to protest. Stand proudly for your national anthem or be suspended without pay. He's absolutely dead wrong on so many levels. He's dead wrong on every level. He reminds me of the Hunter S. Thompson quote with regard to Dick Nixon, where Thompson said if Nixon is breathing, he's lying. Trump is such an obvious puppet of the reptilians, it's not even funny. But anyway, let's stick to how this applies to the reactive mind, the lizard brain, and how easy it is to become enslaved to it. Everything Donnie Trumper says is calculated to stir people's emotions, no matter what side of the political spectrum you are on. The emotions are kings and queens of the reactive mind, the lizard brain. Once they receive any external stimuli, they want to react immediately, without reflection, without pausing, without allowing the external stimuli to reach the neocortex, where the higher brain functions reside. The easiest thing in the world is to allow Donnie Trumper's words to inflame your emotions and enslave you in the reactive mind. Yeah, stand up, mother effers, or get out of my mother effing country. Or, the apocalypse is here and Trump is the Antichrist. This wouldn't be happening if you knuckleheads had voted for Hillary. None of which helps anyone and only works to more firmly entrench the world in its collective reactive mind, the lizard brain. As hard as it may be, allow Donnie Trumper's words to keep on trucking past the reactive mind and back on into the higher brain. Let's take a closer look at the first tweet. The players are showing outrage at something most of them are unable to define. That's completely false. Every single player protesting the national anthem knows damn well exactly why they are protesting. You have every right to disagree with their protesting, but to say they don't know why they are protesting is laughably false. They are protesting police brutality and racism that is so indelibly ingrained in our country's history and present that it permeates all levels of society and its institutions. You can disagree with their reasons and say that racism was banned permanently after the Civil Rights Movement, but it's undeniable that is the reason they are protesting. It's undeniable that they don't know. It's undeniable that they don't know what they are protesting. It's so obvious as to be understood. They make a fortune doing what they love. Really? Hardly. Very few players who are lucky enough to stay healthy for several years make a fortune. The great majority of NFL players are out of the league within 3 years. Most NFL contracts are not guaranteed. Even the guys who make a few million in salary pay upwards of half of that in taxes, and then they are left with broken down bodies and brains for the rest of their lives. They make a fortune doing what they love is misleading at best. Taking a knee when they should be standing proudly for the national anthem. Says who? You? Who? It's a song, for crying out loud. Of all the nightmarish crap transpiring in the world, taking a knee in silent protest during the playing of a song is what roils your feathers. It's time to put on your big boy pants. On to the second tweet. Be happy. Be cool. Yes, do as I say, not as I do. A football game where fans are paying so much money to watch and enjoy is no place for a protest. Yes, because Big Brother has an inventory list of approved places for peaceful protest, and a football field did not make that list. Last time I checked, no one is physically forced to buy a cable TV package which includes football broadcasts. Nor is there a compulsory law applicable to people with larger supplies of disposable income saying they must wedge their fat asses into a stadium seat and watch young men enact a gladiator war simulation game live in person. There are no laws in the books for either of those. Most of that money goes to the players anyway. Yes, because that is how billionaires have become billionaires. They're essentially running charities where the lion's share of the profits go to the employees. That's how capitalism works. The owners and TV networks accept their modest portion of the profits and hand over the lion's share to those gosh darn greedy players. Thanks for distilling the essence of capitalism for us, Donnie Trumpers. Find another way to protest. Stand proudly for your national anthem or be suspended without pay. Pure, unadulterated, shameless fascism. Finish that tweet with a flourish, Donnie Trumpers. Attaboy. The real kicker of all this is that Trump will probably say something even more asinine before he has breakfast this morning. Maybe even sign an executive order stating we all need to provide U.S. passports to buy groceries. The examples are legion, but Trump is so easy to use to illustrate the reactive mind, the lizard brain, and how easy it is to become enslaved to it and contribute to the perpetual stirring of the cauldron of witch's brew that keeps the world in servitude to the reactive mind, the lizard brain. So again, what can any one person do? This is where David Icke proves so instructive in my transformation. Never before did I see the whole picture laid out in front of me until I read Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More. There are no shortcuts, and my whole life has been a detective's journey into the mystery of mysteries, unresolved mysteries that have puzzled me in some shape or form since I was 5 years old. Ever since I was 5 years old and under that table in preschool, since those first rudimentary intimations entered my child brain and brought me my first awareness of the control system, that something was fundamentally and profoundly off with the world. David Icke crystallized all those nebulous notions, intimations, and thoughts. He connected the dots for me, and for the first time in my life the veil was lifted. And with that comes personal power and heretofore unimaginable peace. The control system cannot control you unless you let it. Unless you let it feed off your low-frequency energies, fear, anger, stress, anxiety, and the like, it cannot control you. So how do you do that? Thank you, David Icke. Master the reactive mind, the lizard brain. Do not let the reactive mind, lizard brain, master you. Pause. When the madhouse craziness of this world is coming at you full bore, you pause. David Icke suggests you say in your head, and? Pick any simple mnemonic device that works for you. Freeze that reactive mind, the lizard brain, and don't give in to your reactive, in no way reflective, emotional mind. We have to consciously activate the neocortex in our high-functioning brain. How many times do you find yourself after an argument asking yourself, what on earth just happened? How did it get so ugly? What possessed me to say that or do that? The reactive mind, the lizard brain, had you in the grip of its filthy tendrils. Laugh, and not in some snide, snarky, sneering, or sarcastic way. Those forms of laughter are just expressions of low-frequency energies in disguise. Laugh after the pause, after asking and, or counting to 10, or whatever it is you consciously did to freeze and master the reactive mind, lizard brain, to reach the higher brain. Laugh from a spreading awareness born of the wisdom that life is unfathomably intricate and complex, and that the best remedy for most confrontations, short of someone in the throes of a life or death situation, is laughter. Conscious humor and laughter will bring down the control system. Conscious humor and laughter born of wisdom and knowledge of just what the heck is going on here on this planet, even a sprouting inkling of it, is a great place to start. In the final analysis, it all comes down to love and abiding peace. Living in love and abiding peace. It sounds simple, but rarely, if ever, is it easy. I think this is where the importance of expanding our awareness, deepening our wisdom and knowledge of just what the heck is going on here comes into play. Or at the very least, expanding our minds through the growing awareness that the possibilities for answering the questions, what are we and what is going on here, are far-reaching beyond our once imagined boundaries and quite possibly infinite. Unless we spend our entire lives in a sensory deprivation chamber where we are impervious to external stimuli, it's impossible not to be affected by our world. And this world takes its toll on our capacities to love. I hearken back to the words of my high school chemistry teacher. I remember we had these word and number puzzles, part crossword and part Sudoku, and all of us kids would take them home for a few nights or maybe a week, I forget the time frame, to work on solving them. I forget which teacher handed out these puzzles. In any case, at the end of the week, we'd hand a copy of the puzzle to my high school chemistry teacher, and he'd solve the thing in 15 minutes. He'd then proceed to gently explain the solution without a hint of condescension in his voice. One of his favorite refrains, and I will never forget this one, is that it's just a game. Everything in life is just a game. Don't worry about it. Don't take it too seriously. Do your best, but always remember, it's just a game. That stuck with me. And in the light of David Icke and Human Race Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More, with the secrets it reveals, remembering it's all just a game makes it so much easier to walk the road of abiding peace and infinite love. So I guess we'll see. August 2018.